PodcastOne presents the Steve Austin Show Classics.
All right, everybody, welcome to Steve Austin Show, talking to Wade Keller. Wade Keller, tell everybody where you're coming from.
I'm coming from St. Paul, Minnesota.
And it's PW Torch and PW Torch Livecast?
Yeah, pwtorch.com is our daily news and commentary website, and pwtorchlivecast.com is where we do our podcast 5 days a week live with live callers.
Well, let's talk about the Royal Rumble, Wade. Where should we start with this? Because, I mean, man, I tell you what, the Internet actually blew up last night. And it was a hashtag. It was trending worldwide on Twitter. Canceled WWE Network?
Yeah, it was trending this morning still. It was the number one trend in the country. Canceled WWE Network. Fans were not happy with the way that finish went last night with Roman Reigns winning and Daniel Bryan getting eliminated halfway through.
Now, do you think people were just hashtagging that, or do you think people were actually following through and canceling the network?
People sent me notices, screen captures of their cancellation. Doesn't mean they won't sign up in a week, re-sign up in a week or right before Fastlane, with no commitment necessary. You're going to get people who are jumping on and off. But I think there's a sense right now of fans wanting their voice heard, and if they don't think Vince McMahon and Triple H are listening to their boos in the arena, or they're not in the building to boo, I think they feel there's a power by canceling in a big group all at once as a way to send a message.
But certainly it's not a good signal. I mean, that's the most drastic response to a Royal Rumble I can remember. And last year's was pretty severe, but this was a whole different level.
I thought this was a different level. I think it was a different level because people saw it coming more this year.
Right.
And it felt like last year maybe it was a bit of a surprise. I mean, a lot of this, I think, Steve, is because of WWE telling their audience for several years now, and they've stopped maybe the last 6-9 months, but they used to tell people, their audience, all the time, did we entertain you? I hope we entertained you. John Cena would stand in the ring and go, my most important job isn't winning matches, it's did I entertain you? And I think that actually gave power to the audience in a way that WWE didn't anticipate it, and it's backfiring now because instead of leaning back and enjoying the show and trusting that they're on a journey and they're on for the ride, I think WWE sort of conditioned this generation to think the steering wheel is in their hands, and with social media, they're starting to feel the consequences.
So what do you think about the first just atmosphere of the crowd there in Philly? Philly, a little bit of a hill-oriented crowd. A lot of the crowds over in the Northeast are. So they pretty much knew this was going to be a hard sell going into this event with the finish that was going to happen, and that was Roman Reigns going over in the Royal Rumble, winning.
Roman Reigns should be over in Philadelphia. He's a cool dude. He's a badass. He's got some cool signature spots. He should be over. They can't blame Philadelphia for this. Is it more intense in Philadelphia than it would have been in Baton Rouge, Louisiana? Maybe. Probably. I mean, given the Philadelphia history. But I also don't think that WWE should think that crowds like that are not indicative of a lot of their audience. I don't think they should write that off as some fringe 2%. I think that's the voice of the fans, and I think if WWE listened to them a little bit more and found a way to work their feelings into and accommodate their feelings more, I actually think it would appeal on a broader scale, too, to the fans who are maybe just more polite.
So then what do you think would have happened had Daniel Bryan won this event?
I think the place would have exploded and fans would have felt vindicated and loved it, and they would have looked forward to seeing Daniel Bryan beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, and it would have been a great story for 2015. I don't know if it's the best story long-term because Daniel Bryan might not be your long-term answer, but I don't think WWE should always put aside they should always throw out long-term plans if it's what's best for business in the next 4 months. I think Daniel Bryan winning and beating Lesnar was the best plan for early 2015, in part because Roman Reigns just isn't ready yet, and we've talked about that.
Well, you just said Roman Reigns isn't ready yet. 30 seconds ago, you said he had a cool moveset. Okay.
Well, he's got a few cool moves. He needs
a few cool moves. Does not make a cool yeah. Does not a superstar make?
No. But the point, you're right to point that out. And my point is Roman Reigns is kind of like he should be appealing to the demographic in Philadelphia. That's my point. But the things that he has is all WWE management seems to be focused on, and I don't think they're taking into account what he doesn't have yet, and that is he hasn't paid those dues with the fans that Daniel Bryan did, Bret Hart did, you did. There's a certain expectation that wrestling fans have that they expect top stars who are going to win big matches like the Royal Rumble. There's a certain expectation that they will or they should put some time in the ring and have some 20-minute wars that they win, not just throwing out a Superman punch, a spear, and calling it a day. And I think fans sense that So it's a combination of a lot of things that blew up last night. We don't know about how WWE is going to react to this, but I'm fascinated at whether they write it off as, oh, those damn Philly fans, or they go, maybe this is a wake-up call.
Okay, let's talk about the Royal Rumble. What stood out in your mind as the whole event unfolded from start to finish, 1 through 30?
I thought it was a really solid first half of the Rumble. And then I thought the second half fell apart. You could tell when they got to the part where they're going to fill the ring in. So you're going to have to wait a minute or two, right, and they got to fill the ring in for the mass exodus. I thought they lost something there. I think late in the game, having it for people keeping track, knowing who the last two were, Ziggler and Big Show, if I remember right, from last night, were the last two. And I think people keeping score at home knew that. In a way, it took away that sense of, oh, I hope it's a big surprise. Maybe Rock's coming out. But in another way, it led to some predictability at the end. But really, having Bryan get eliminated, the story of the match became the crowd reaction.
Right.
And they were booing everything, rejecting everything, and they were pissed off. And I don't think the match ever recovered from that, Steve. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation like that where the crowd just at one point gets so deflated there's nothing you can do. I felt bad for the guys in the ring who were working hard.
What do you think would have happened had they left Daniel Bryan into at least the final five, because you were taking your final four down to Big Show, Kane, Roman Reigns, and was it Ziggler?
Ziggler was out pretty quick. Rusev was obviously hiding at ringside.
Yeah, Rusev. But what would have happened had you put Daniel Bryan and left him in there a little bit longer?
See, I might be wrong on this, because first of all, I think you're choosing between two bad options. So let's establish that first of all. If you're going to have Bryan in the match and eliminate him, you're asking for trouble no matter when he gets eliminated. I was figuring that they would have him go out early, midway, so that I think their thinking was, well, we'll give the crowd 20, 30 minutes to cope, to come to terms with the reality, and then go through all the stages of denial and acceptance and negotiating, all that stuff that people do, and then that they would feel like, hey, by the 60-minute mark, people will be into Reigns and accept it. They weren't. The intensity wasn't there. It's a good thing, I think, based on the intensity of the crowd after Daniel Bryan got eliminated for about that first 10 minutes. I think it was smart for them to do it mid-match rather than later, because I think if they did it with only 5-10 minutes left in the match, the crowd would have actually been booing nonstop because they would have known they had the endurance to do it and to create a scene. And I think they just ran out of steam. I think they lost 60-70% of their steam after 5-10 minutes of booing and rejecting everything. So I think it was smart booking to eliminate Bryan early. I was expecting, Steve, that they would have something more elaborate to explain Bryan's exit than just being tossed. I thought there would be some storyline that they'd get fans excited about something regarding Bryan, so they'd go, okay, he's not main eventing Mania, but at least they gave me this storyline with Bryan that I like, not just tossing him out like he was, Stardust.
Right. Well, was there anything else that stood out to you? One of the things that stood out to me was, again, I'm really a fan of Rusev. He's still a little bit green, but he's really making a lot of progress. His instincts are spot on. Yep. He has great instincts. Anytime anybody tried to, throw him up over, by the ring, you see so many times, as I talked to, last week on a live cast, guys just do the teeter-totter over the top rope and they stay there for 5 minutes. I mean, that's why, like I went back to on your podcast, it's a hard match to work. Anytime anybody tried to grab Rusev, he immediately squatted down and just hung onto the ropes. It's a natural reaction, but most people don't do that. But, I mean, that's his instincts. Yeah. All of his stuff looks good offensively. The kicks, the bumps. I really think that guy continues to stand out. And he was on defense a lot in that match. But I just like the kid's instincts, and he really represented himself well.
And Steve, somebody asked me this, like, what is Rusev's potential? Because I don't think with that body type and that look that as a face down the line or a heel, he can be the very top guy. Seth Rollins can be the very top guy. Roman Reigns can. I think what he is, and I don't know who to compare him to, but he's can be a top-tier heel, but not the centerpiece main eventer for years.
I think, that remains to be seen because he still is so green. But, he's going to have to start incorporating a few more high spots into his work to get there. Just being the menace that he is, I don't think he's going to get there. But you make a very valid point. I just think if he does incorporate a different moveset and some high spots into his work, then he can indeed be there. And the fact
big man high spots.
Big man high. Now, not scientific wrestling, but certainly more so than what he's doing. But he continues to be a guy that I like to watch because his body of work is very solid.
I thought I thought having Rusev at ringside and having the announcers play dumb when 17,000 people in the building were chanting for Rusev.
Yeah,
when WWE tries to outsmart the fans, they better be sure they're going to outsmart the fans, because when they don't, I think it puts the announcers, and announcer credibility is so important. You don't want your announcers to look like buffoons. I feel that way about like babyface tag teams that do a move and then they celebrate together, and that celebration leads to getting attacked by the heels.
Right.
It makes the babyfaces look dumb.
Yeah.
Fans don't like to cheer for a product announced by dumb announcers or announcers who play dumb, who are trying to con them. And so that I thought was a misstep. And I wasn't even sure what the strategy was, Steve, with having a fake victory for Rusev and then a real one a few minutes later after eliminating Rusev. It just felt a little overbooked, and I thought they missed on some of the execution of what they intended to do was there, but I don't think the intentions made a lot of sense in retrospect.
Well, then going back just to the action between Roman Reigns and Rusev, I mean, very basic, rudimentary stuff where there was really nothing. Grabbed him by the back of the neck, threw his ass over the top rope. I mean, that's where, I expected, as I was talking on your live cast, they were going to have the final four guys. And I was thinking, I didn't know that Seth Rollins was going to be in that triple threat, which was off the chart, and we'll get to that in a minute. Yep. But I thought, it'd be Ziggler, Rollins, a couple of guys who could really shine him up, really build that thing to the end. As it was, the Royal Rumble itself peaked midway and then kind of went downhill. But so anyway, back to Roman Reigns and Rusev in the ring. Give me some action. Cut him off. Rusev, put him in a bad predicament. I don't care how long it is, from 1 minute to 5 minutes. Get some severe heat on him so that maybe you're going to get this crowd to start cheering for him. Let him come from underneath. All of a sudden, Roman Reigns is pink. He's over the top rope, and we're talking about Rusev, who's been, a pretty dominant force, for the past few months. Now, Rock came out a while back and, just started laying into him with some big right hands and totally, emasculated him and destroyed the heat at that point. And all of a sudden, here comes Roman Reigns. And, those two guys have got to put in some work so that it, other than, lasting, I think, would he come into the number 19 spot?
Reigns 19.
Okay, yep. I mean, he didn't really do a whole lot offensively.
No, he took a nap.
He took a
laid
nap.
In the corner, took a nap.
He gets in the corner and he gets tied up with the guy and didn't put any a real body of work worth noting in. So you're coasting.
The WWE style since the Attitude Era, really, actually, Michaels and Brett, after post Hogan, Michaels, Brett set the pace. Then you did it, and then Cena did it. Guys in between did it. WWE fans, I think multiple generations now, have come to expect main eventers who are workhorses in the ring. And I was really surprised that they didn't take this opportunity in the Rumble, because we've seen it before, to create a showcase environment like you just talked about for Reigns to come from underneath. I think they didn't want to give fans false hope that Ziggler could win, because I think the same thing could happen with him that would have happened with Bryan if he was in late. But that said, maybe having Ziggler, Reigns, and Rusev together work 4, 5, 6 minutes, 3, 4 minutes, whatever it is, just going all out, and have Ziggler create that movement and have Reigns look like $1 million but keep up with him, and then have Rusev be the heel. Again, 2 faces, 1 heel, maybe that's not great, but you tweak it. But having Ziggler out there going full speed and Reigns keeping up with him, I think Reigns could have earned the fans' respect in a 5-minute sequence at the end. And instead, I think the way they booked it played in the perception of Reigns, which is that he is being gifted the top spot and he's doing the least amount that anybody's ever done to get it, including John Cena, who gets a lot of heat for being picked by Stephanie. So,
what did you think about the end there with Big Show, Kane, and Roman Reigns?
And they had Ambrose in there a little bit late.
Well, Ambrose in there a little bit late, but then finally, for the win, right before the win, those two guys, Kane's trying to put over Rusev over the top rope. Big Show decides, he's going to turn on Kane, the guy who kind of partnered up throughout the Rumble, and is unsuccessful in his attempt. Now, the biggest guy in the territory is unsuccessful right there. 2 guys in jeopardy, couldn't get the job done. Here comes Kane. There's the push, double goozle, for the choke slam. They get over near the ropes, and then here comes Roman Reigns with the easy dump out.
Dump out, yeah.
Right before that, both guys had a double team on Reigns at the rope. Now, I know it's a work, but you got the 2 biggest, baddest, strongest guys in the territory from a body weight standpoint, and they could not, between the 2 of them, throw Roman Reigns over the top rope. Come on, man. Me,
and again, it plays into you've got to make Reigns look like $1 million without making Reigns look like he's the. This happened with me where you're on a basketball team and the coach has a son on the team. And you get the sense that sometimes the son is getting favorable treatment, playing time, and that kind of thing. And I think that's kind of what they put Reigns in a position to do. I thought it made Reigns look bad that the only reason that Reigns eliminated Kane and Big Show is because they argued with each other. They couldn't stay on the same page.
Right.
Like, if you're going to give Reigns a spot to make a big comeback, and it was designed for a big pop, have it be because Reigns that he outsmarted and outworked him, not because they didn't have the discipline to stay together and work together. I thought that kind of undercut the story I think they're trying to tell with Roman. And then you got Rock coming out, and it looked like, again, kind of a run-in from Uncle Dwayne, saving a kid who's in over his head at this point. That's not what they were going for. I think Vince thought Rock will save the day.
Right.
And instead, I thought it made it look like Reigns needed help from the big star. Again, this is an unfair – it's an exaggerated analogy, but it's sort of like Bill Watts coming out to save Eric Watts. Like, you just let the kid do it on his own,
right.
Not have Rock come out at this point when fans are already skeptical that he deserves it. So I thought a lot of stuff that maybe on paper looked okay played out, and it shouldn't have looked okay, but as it played out, it was even worse in front of that crowd.
You're listening to another classic episode of The Steve Austin Show, only on PodcastOne.
Paying out of your own pocket for gear you need to do your job is a problem. All kinds of departments across the nation, police, fire, EMS, medical workers on the front lines, and even military units, they all deal with constrained budgets and outdated gear. But there's still a job to do, and you need the gear to do it. Hunting for military, first responder discounts has historically required going from one website to another and all kinds of hassle. Don't you wish there was one place you could visit that had a carefully crafted selection of deals for military first responders in one spot? GovX works directly with brands to negotiate the best prices possible because you deserve the gear you need at the prices you've earned. Plus, you can trust that the gear you're ordering is 100% authentic, direct from the manufacturer. If you must pay out of your own pocket, you shouldn't have to pay a premium to get the gear you need to effectively perform your duties and complete your mission. GovX has a huge collection of gear and apparel from popular brands, all in one convenient location. It's like a grown man's toy store in here. Just wait until you see our knife collection. All you need to do is sign up for free. No subscription fees. No re-up in your membership every year. Once you're approved, you're a fully fledged GovX member for life. GovX honors your service and gives back to your communities. We don't just thank you for your service, we honor it. So if you're an American of service, a current or former member of the military, firefighting, frontline medical, or law enforcement communities, or the emergency medical, join GovX for free and enjoy a community that honors and gives back to patriots like you. If you've got a military or first responder background, visit govx.com and sign up for free for instant access to tons of deals and a community that honors your service. Visit govx.com and receive $15 off first orders over $50 or more when you use code STEVE. That's $15 off first orders over $50 or more when you use code STEVE at govx.com. Yeah, I was sitting there making notes during the entire Rumble, and so I had looked out. I'd been looking at writing, and I'd forgotten that Rusev was even out and on the floor, but was basically still in the Rumble. Yep. So I thought, Rock was coming down there, and it was a celebration. Oh, there was still a little bit more, and that's when Rusev came in, dipsy-do over the top rope. But it was like, man, the way you brought the Rock in, it was damage control from the start because they knew the kid was going to be weathering some storms, so they brought Dwayne in to try to help save the day. But to your point, they should have let the kid win it by himself. And it's the fact that because he's family, Rock was in attendance to see how he would do, because he did so well in the last Rumble, come off his hernia surgery, and maybe be there, as a supporter to help, celebrate after the win. More so than bail him out of trouble.
Or at least have the trouble that Roman is in be all the authority. I mean, have, even Triple H come out there and be ordering the beatdown and really orchestrating it, and Stephanie cheering, and just really lay it on thick, and then all of a sudden the Rock's music plays and Triple H gets bug-eyed. Stephanie freezes in her tracks. J&J security just scurry through the crowd, and he walks out, and you put over the Rock that, hey, the Rock's serious business, and it breaks up, and then Reigns maybe makes a comeback on his own at that point just because Rock came out onto the stage, and then Rock joins in afterwards. I just think there's ways to tweak it where Reigns looks better. And
Right.
I don't think the way that was laid out, I think it blew up a little bit.
Now, what did you think when Rock came out, when he hit his music? Tremendous pop, blew the roof off the building. It was tremendous pop. But all of a sudden, he goes in, holds up Reigns' hand, different tone, different tune.
Yep.
The audience crapped all over it. And you can see this incredulous look in The Rock's face, and that's a shoot look.
Yes.
I mean, he's wondering. I mean, he's like almost,
It was Hogan Rock all over, Hogan Rock a little bit, where the crowd was not quite what he expected.
He's almost in disbelief, but you can see he's a little bit hot too.
Yep.
Because they were crapping all over the scene that was playing out in front of them.
Yep.
And of course, everybody loves The Rock, but all of a sudden, the rub turned into they rubbed him the wrong way, and it didn't work.
Well, and you wonder, and I haven't heard, but I wonder if Rock looked at it, liked it beforehand, or looked at it and was skeptical and had kind of an "I told you so." I should have put up more of a fight backstage to change this. And I don't know. I don't know how engaged Rock is or aware Rock is. What happened with Batista last year? Why fans in Philly were were prepared and fearing a replay with Reigns? I don't know how much he was aware of that happening. But if you're Rock and you're protecting your image, and he's got a lot at stake, for him to go in front of a sellout crowd and make news the next day that he's standing next to a guy who's getting booed out of the building, I think that's bad PR for him, and I would be upset if I were him. And I hope that he wasn't deceived, or they didn't hold back information that, hey, Rock, be prepared for this. He had to know, though. Steve, he's smart. He heard the crowd.
Rock's
30
way
minutes
smart.
earlier.
He's a way savvy guy.
Yeah.
He watches the product. He knows what's going on.
Yeah.
I think he knew from the get-go that this was a preemptive strike, and hopefully a fail-safe or something to help the kid out.
A net.
Yeah, a net. He was the net.
Yeah.
But the net had a hole in it.
No, and I mean, the fans showed with John Cena, and going back to Hogan too, fans love The Rock. He's charismatic, huge star, movie star, all of that. But when you are, in WWE, ironically 3 years ago, conditioned their audience to believe this. If you're a movie star or you go away and then you come back, you're the bad guy because John Cena's the guy who's there every weekend for you. They condition their fans to believe that. It's a huge contributor to the reaction to Batista last year as a babyface coming back from time off. The year after Rock, the year after they do a 3-year series, kind of framing Rock as a bad guy for leaving the family and then coming back and expecting to be cheered and embraced, to then expect Batista to come back as a babyface after doing the exact same thing, going away and coming back. That was, I thought, a little bit tone deaf. And this year, it showed that Rock is vulnerable when the fans who watch every week, if they're invested in Daniel Bryan or Dolph Ziggler, that's who they're invested in right now. Rock's a celebrity, but if you make fans choose between Rock endorsing Reigns or Bryan, who they think earned it and deserved it, the fans are going to choose Bryan in that context.
Right.
Doesn't mean Bryan's a bigger star in the big picture, but in the context of today's storyline, the road to WrestleMania, the fans are going to side with Bryan or Ziggler over Rock and Reigns right now.
Okay, so now moving forward, what do you do with Roman Reigns?
I'm worried. I mean, because I don't have a great answer for him. I don't think he should go on TV and be cute and acknowledge the boos and try to, own them and break kayfabe and do. I think if going into the Rumble, if the plan was we're going full steam ahead and we're just going to pretend he's over, I think they just got to kind of pretend he's over and hope that Philly was an anomaly or an exaggeration. But it's the stuff we talked about last week when you were on my show, Steve. They need to put Reigns in a position to show more to the fans and earn their respect, and doing a Superman punch and imitating Looney Tunes phrases. And Superman, it feels too corporate. It feels too packaged. Even the vest looks like they're preparing for merchandising sales. They need to figure out something in the next 2 months, and it needs to be probably a 6-week deliberate plan to position him in a way to earn the fans' respect. And I don't know that they have that plan, Steve.
Boy,
it might be too much too soon.
Yeah, but and talking about trying to earn the fans' respect, I mean, they're really starting in a hole.
They are.
Because because people feel like he's being forced down their throats. He's not ready. And they're looking at the body of work.
Yeah.
And it's not because of a conversation that you and I had last week. That's what's been going on.
Yeah.
And, with the two other guys, 3 total in the Shield, he's done 1/3 the work, come in and shine and get out. Now, all of a sudden, you've got all these, the gaps to fill in the blanks, and he hasn't been able to fill in those blanks. So then do you do the double turn?
Well, see, that's Reigns as a heel. Like, if you go to WrestleMania now, I talked about this to my VIP members on the post-pay-per-view roundtable last night. Same scenario I discussed there. What if you go to Mania with Heyman managing Lesnar, Reigns is a babyface, but you kind of know going in the fans are side because Lesnar, and we should talk about it. I mean, Lesnar was, we'll talk about that match, but Lesnar was booked as the coming from underneath, babyface comeback. That's what they should have done with Reigns. It could have. So you could go to Mania, have Heyman, and again, there's lots of variations of this. This is just broad brushstrokes. Have Heyman end up turning on Lesnar, or Lesnar turning on Heyman when Heyman tries to help him when he doesn't want him to. Heyman sides with Reigns, and one way or the other, the show ends with Reigns as champion, Heyman standing next to him. Lesnar loses the title thanks to Heyman, and you've set up a potential rematch, and you've also shifted the best talker in the business, Paul Heyman, into a position to help no pun intended, help Roman Reigns shore up his weakness, one of his weaknesses, which is talking. And I think Reigns as a heel, Steve, is probably better than a babyface right now because fans expect so much from babyfaces after the Daniel Bryan, CM Punk generation of babyfaces, and Ziggler. They want athletic, hardworking babyfaces. So maybe the double turn is in the works, and it might in the long run work out, but it's going to be a rocky road. Still,
if you went down that road, if you position him as a heel, and you still got to work around the moveset, you still got to work around the work rate, of which, at this time, quite frankly, he just does not possess.
Is it easier, Steve, to work if you're as limited as Reigns is? Is it easier to work as a heel or a face, do you think, with the skill set that he's put on display for you? It's not an ideal situation either way, but...
It's not an ideal situation either way, but I would venture to say as a heel, because if you just cheat...
Kick, stomp.
I don't
know.
Kick and stomp, but that being said, I mean, you're not going to be the guy leading that match because you don't have any instincts to lead that match.
Yeah.
And with everything that I love about Brock Lesnar, who's a good friend of mine, leading that match, is not his forte.
Yep.
He's great in there with a great guy that can work and dictate. And dude's phenomenal. And we're about to get to the that match here in a second.
Good news. Yeah.
But yeah, those two in the ring, there's not a tried and true, established, bona fide ring general who can feel the pulse of that crowd and respond accordingly.
I guess you got Heyman, but you'd have to plan the move, the match.
You got Heyman on the outside,
well,
yeah.
No, I know. I mean, he's the only guy who would be there, but how do he can't communicate in the mid-match. I think what they would have to do with that match, because of what you just said, is plan it out move for move and hope for the best. And just hopefully take into consideration what the likely response is going to be in that stadium, and then book a match around it and have them just go through it, not with instincts. They shouldn't put themselves in a position to have two guys, neither of whom can lead a match, in a main event of Mania. That's part of the problem with pushing Reigns now. But given the reality, maybe they got to just meticulously plan it out and just go forward with it no matter what the crowd responds. It's dangerous, but I don't know another option.
Here's a couple of emails I got here, Wade, and I'm just going to read a couple of these. It's from Danny Cage over to Monster Factory. He said, Steve, remind these MF that there would be no Rock if at first there wasn't a Rocky Maivia. Sure, people hate Roman now because he's not organic. He's packaged. Eventually, they'll smarten up.
Rocky Maivia did not headline WrestleMania when the fans were booing him and saying, die, Rocky, die. He was part of a faction. It was during a stretch of time that he was earning his respect for the fans, and he got over and headlined WrestleMania after he learned how to cut promos.
But they brought him in as a white meat babyface. People crapped on him. He had to go through that process and then, ascended to the top through a hard body of work.
And that's the thing. That's what you and I were talking about last Thursday on my show.
Right.
We both agree, and I think we don't want to forget to say it for those who didn't hear my show. We both agree that in 3, 4, 5 years, Roman Reigns is as likely as anybody to be the centerpiece, successful face of this company, leading the brand. There's a cluster of a few people who maybe are in that category. Roman Reigns is right there. He's got some tools, but he's not there yet, and Rock wasn't there yet. So if you say, well, people are forgetting about Rock, well, we're not forgetting about him. What we're saying is Reigns has potential. Maybe not as much as Rock, maybe more. Who knows at this stage? But he's not ready to headline WrestleMania yet, and that's where the crowd reaction is coming from.
Here's one other one that says, Steve, it wasn't the Reigns one. We all knew that was going to happen. The Rumble and the story leading up to that moment was booked like crap. Every fan favorite was booked like a lower mid-carder. In contrast, everyone knew Brock was retaining. However, the story they told to get there was entertaining as hell. I've been a loyal fan since '84. I've been through the lows of the early '90s. I rode the heights of the Attitude Era, but the past 2 years have been the worst creatively. But the past 2 years have been the worst creatively for the WWE that I can remember. The booking of the Royal Rumble was a microcosm of those 2 years. I canceled my network subscription before the infamous hashtag cancel WWE Network. I've got to send a message somehow. It's coming from Melvin T.
Yeah. I mean, there's an example of somebody wanting their voice heard by canceling the network. WWE, people used to say when you're upset, don't watch Raw. And I thought, you know what? I think complaining on Twitter has more of an effect than not watching Raw if you're not a Nielsen household.
Right.
Like, I mean, and Twitter means almost, it doesn't mean a lot, but it's at least people voicing. But when you have 800,000, give or take, people out there, if 10,000 people cancel in one day, that's a big deal to WWE. If 80,000 do, that's a 10% drop. Those are realistic numbers of what might have canceled in the last 24 hours. So I do think fans can let their voice be heard that way. Ultimately, I think WWE is like, they're going to be back. And a lot of them probably will. But I think what you're going to see is a lot of fans almost, it's sort of like CNN during debates. You got the dial you turn, like, don't like. I think what we're going to see are fans going, I'm going to cancel for 2 weeks and then sign back up again. But that's my way of turning the dial to not liking what I saw. But in 2 weeks, I'll sign up again because I want to see Fastlane. And WWE might have to live with that, but they don't want to play with danger too much. They should want fans to want to be there every single week, including, for your interview with Triple H next Monday.
Hey, before we shift gears and get to the triple threat match, any other final thoughts that I didn't pick up on a Royal Rumble?
No, I think they could have won some fans over again had they let Ziggler do more. I think fans were double upset at Reigns by the end because their other guy that they were hoping would have a showcase opportunity like he did at Survivor Series did not. Same with Dean Ambrose, but Ziggler and Bryan are more capable. Yeah, I mean, as far as Rumble goes, that's the main stuff. I mean, they had some fun stuff with Dudley and Boogeyman and DDP. DDP did a nice job out there. I think he's worth mentioning. Yeah.
I was glad to see DDP be a part of that, and he did good. Other than that, I was surprised to see Bubba Ray there.
I wasn't shocked because I kind of thought he has some nostalgia value right now. It says something that he spent a couple years in TNA as a world champ, top heel, and they bring him out, and he gets eliminated pretty early, and is by Bray Wyatt at just a couple minutes after entering, 2.5 minutes after entering. He didn't get exactly a showcase position. That kind of framed him as a nostalgia act, not somebody that they've got pegged to be a top heel. I think he was good enough on the microphone and good enough in TNA, especially when he was in the best shape he has been in, that if they're short on heels, I'd say give Bubba Ray 6 to 8 month plan and get some top work out of him.
Agreed. And then, but before we move on, what was the story with Curtis Axel coming out, getting jumped by Eric Rowan's, and then he never actually made it to the ring? So I've been getting tons of email from people about that.
You know what they need to do? And Steve, I'm a stickler I like structure in wrestling because then it's easier for heels to get heat for breaking that structure. When you have arbitrary rules that sometimes are followed, sometimes aren't, and are never explained, I think it's harder to establish when people are breaking rules. This is a case where I think there should be a Royal Rumble rule book. Can be one page, can be PDF online at www.com. Everybody gets handed it, and you book around it. And one of the rules should be, if you don't make it to the ring in 60 seconds, you're eliminated. Because then the announcers can go, it's been 60 seconds, right. Axel didn't get to the ring, we are making note, he is officially eliminated. Boom. Now you don't have this distraction where people are thinking, what about Curtis? Because it is confusing when Rusev is laying at ringside and Axel's laying on the stage. What's the difference?
Right.
Yeah, so it's attention to detail, and I wish they cared about it.
Okay. All right, before we move on, let's take a little pause for the calls and hear a word from the sponsors. Keep this show on the air for free. I'm coming right back with Wade Keller of PW Torch.
You're listening to another classic episode of The Steve Austin Show, only on PodcastOne.
Do you own or rent your home? Sure you do, and I bet it can be hard work. You know what's easy? Bundling policies with Geico. Geico makes it easy to bundle your homeowners or renters insurance along with your auto policy. It's a good thing, too, because you already have so much to do around your home. Go to geico.com, get a quote, and see how much you could save. It's Geico easy. Visit geico.com today. That's geico.com.
The Steve Austin Show. The Steve Austin Show.
All right, Wade, let's talk about the triple threat. Man.
Fantastic.
You're probably going to give it a star rating on your show. But how many stars would you give that match?
I gave it 4.5.
I'll go right with you with that 4.5. Initially, I was thinking 4 3/4. A couple of the kickouts, just being really, really, really picky. A couple of the kickouts just came a little too early, and you could have just maximized those kickouts. So that's why I would give it 4.5. But it's probably my favorite triple threat match that I've ever seen in recent memory, because I don't remember everything that I've seen. But the match, in my estimation, was just off the charts, and I thought all three guys worked their asses off, and I really, really enjoyed that match.
It was funny. I was monitoring Twitter during the Rumble, and there were people tweeting, this, no matter how frustrated I go with WWE, this is why I remain a fan. This is awesome. And then an hour later or a half hour later, that same fan was probably canceling a subscription. It's like WWE, when they get it right, it's so awesome. And Brock Lesnar, I just can't say enough good things about him. I've been a fan of his since, his rookie year. I just think he had a natural instinct for it. If he loved the travel and loved the business more, he would have been, competing with John Cena. He would have been Larry Bird, Magic Johnson to John Cena.
Right.
It's too bad he didn't like the travel and the lifestyle. He's phenomenal. When he walks out onto the stage, I absolutely am glued to the screen. And in the ring, he knows what he can do. He knows what he should do, and he does it better than anybody. Facial expressions were great. Seth Rollins, I stand by it. If I had to cut 2 out of 3 Shield members, Seth would be the last guy standing.
Right.
He is so amazingly good. He's what WWE needed, that type of heel. It's been a while. No disrespect to Dean or Roman either. It's just Seth is phenomenal.
No, yeah.
That was great. But it's funny. I'm exactly with you on the star rating, and in that I thought that the WWE, when they want to have a crazy all-out match with gasps and pops and all of that, I think they overdo it on multiple big finishing moves with kickouts.
Right.
And I think they cashed in probably 30% too much on that. And that's why I went from last night I said it on my audio roundtable. I went from 4 3/4, 4.5, because when I was debating it, I thought too many kickouts after big moves. It felt like it's not cheating, but it's you just pull back a little bit, be a little more efficient. But really, you're right. It's nitpicking because it's a match of the year contender right out of the gate.
And there were several incredible displays of strength. Everybody knows that Brock Lesnar is one of the biggest, strongest guys on planet Earth. And I'm not talking about a powerlifting contest. I'm just talking about real world, athletic strength. And, the double stuff he did with Joey Mercury and Jamie Noble, those 2 guys came in there a couple of times when they jumped, I guess it was John Cena, and just tremendous punches, and broke up the match one time. Those guys were awesome additions, so I wanted to give them a shout-out. But when he picked both those guys up, and then, first of all, that was when Cena did that, but when Brock Lesnar give both of those guys basically was a suplex or like kind of a version of a F5. What was that?
Yeah, I'm not even quite sure.
No, it was basically like a big double suplex.
Yeah, kind of a double German.
Yeah, double German. Oh, I mean, just so impressive. And that guy, and then all of a sudden,
Cena too with the double.
Yeah,
FU.
but Brock Lesnar was about ready to give Cena the F5, and here comes Seth Rollins off the top turnbuckle, landed squarely right where he was supposed to, basically on the neck head of Brock Lesnar, and then just taking that punishment, then going down. Then also when he was coming off with that springboard off the top rope, it looked like it was going to be a crossbody or something, and Brock caught him in midair, almost bobbled.
He stumbled, but that made it look better.
Yeah, and maintained it because that's how strong of a human being he is. And, of course, Cena, again, with the double gimmick on Noble and Mercury. And then also when Brock Lesnar had Cena in a Kimura to start getting up on his knees, and he was that was right before the thing off the top, but just incredible displays of strength, and people know how strong, explosive Brock is. And if you know anything about John Cena, he's a gym fanatic, and that dude's one of the strongest guys in history of the business. Just to do some of the things they did, and all of a sudden you put that off the charts athleticism of Seth Rollins on there, who's just a badass in his own right. And then, going to the top elbow on the announce table. And I'll tell you what, you got to give Brock Lesnar credit. Marlon Brando laying over there. Because, I was sitting on my couch thinking, all right, now I know it's a work, but he's doing such a good job. It's coming off as a shoot. Yes. And announce team covered it as the broken rib.
That's what you got. That's when wrestling's the best. Immersive sports experience. That's what you want, an immersive sports-like experience. And Brock Lesnar gives it to me, and that's why I love him. Seth Rollins gives it to me. I was joking last week with you, Steve. I believe Seth Rollins so much, in part because he's not putting conflicting messages out on Twitter. I believe that is who he is. I know better. But right. I believe when I watch the show, I have no conflicting signals. Seth Rollins is like that at the Thanksgiving table with his family. He's like that when he goes to the grocery store. Everybody hates him when he goes grocery shopping. They hate him at the car rental station. I love it. And Brock Lesnar's acting was great. John Cena has always had a knack for that. I was immersed in that universe for the duration of that match, and I love when that happens. And that is why, it's down as we are about the finish, there are things that keep fans coming back even when they get frustrated. And a match like that, and maybe it should have ended the show. I mean, that's another second guessing, Steve. Why not end with that finish, even though it's not a full-fledged babyface going over, I guess. Maybe if they've got a match to, but then maybe the fans are booing the whole match because they're so mad. I don't know. The world title match.
The briefcase shots Seth Rollins put on Brock Lesnar were awesome. He laid them in and just totally decimated Brock. He looked like, he was kind of, almost out. And just everything about that match, almost the entire match, other than the kickouts, was just phenomenal. And again, that's being real nitpicky.
Yeah, it is nitpicky, and the mix of the personalities. Brock, sort of a tweener. Seth, great traditional heel, and Cena, a babyface that actually it's noteworthy. Philly crowd, I mean, they were against him, but they weren't as against him as 5 years ago.
No.
He has earned the fans' respect, deservedly so. He's cut back on some of the goofy promo stuff that just didn't work. That for whatever reason, and they, fans are kind of seeing him as they age as a guy who's put in the work. So he can go in there and have the respect of the fans putting in the work, especially when you contrast it to what the fans think of Roman Reigns right now.
But still, I mean, whenever Cena enters an arena, there was electricity. As soon as he came out, that electricity starts. And I firmly believe that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Cena had star power from the beginning. 10 years ago, I just put it up on my website for my members that we were discussing, does John Cena have what it takes? 10 years ago this week, does John Cena have what it takes to be a franchise player for years to come in WWE? And it was early on, WWE saw it, but he had to earn it, but he did earn it. And it's something that some people were slower to come around on than others because people just hated him. But looking back, and you told John Cena on your podcast, what's this podcast called, Stone Cold?
Yeah, the Stone Cold Podcast on the WWE Network. It's Steve Austin Show as we speak.
Steve Austin Show, okay.
Yeah.
I get confused sometimes. And as he said on your show, or as you told him, he's going to be looked at as one of the great long-running franchise babyfaces, along with Bruno and Hulk, and Dusty Rhodes and and Devon Eriks. But Cena at another level, really, than almost everybody but Bruno right there.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. And a lot of people get down on that guy, but without him, that company is in dire straits.
Yeah. Well, they'd have made different choices with certain guys. Maybe Cesaro would be the top guy by now. I don't know. When you're back, Steve, without WCW rating talent and Brett leaving, their space might not have been there for you, and people would look back and go, yeah, it was a lost opportunity to not push Steve. And some people go, what are you talking about, stunning Steve? You think he could have been the guy?
Right.
Like sometimes it would take Cena being gone to figure out who that other guy would have been. But, Orton wouldn't have been able to step up. Lesnar was going to go away. Batista wouldn't have been able to step up. So I don't know who it would have been. And that's why Cena MVP of the last 10 years.
Okay, so right now as we speak, it's Monday. That's going to play on my Tuesday show. I'm hearing words that WWE is supposed to be in Hartford tonight, and there's rumors that the show might be canceled. Any truth to that?
WWE's in Hartford. I don't think they're getting out, but I don't think fans are going to get to the building because the mayor and the governor are saying no travel by 9 p.m. The show starts at 8 p.m. I have an email into WWE, and I haven't seen official word as we're recording this. I think they're going to have to do a pre-taped best of show of some kind on USA tonight with Rumble highlights, studio interplay. Maybe the wrestlers tape some promos because they're stuck there, but they cannot ask the fans to travel there because they're going to need to bring sleeping bags.
So you think they're going to do pre-taped special?
I think they have to. I don't think they're just going to cancel Raw. The other option, if USA Network is game, is shift everything 2 days later. Go Raw is going to be live on Wednesday, SmackDown live on Thursday, and maybe just shift dates, but that depends on the availability of the buildings.
That's very interesting. And they're Boston Tuesday for SmackDown?
And that's already been delayed. TD Bank Center said that the employees are not allowed to be there Tuesday. So it's a matter of will it be Wednesday or Thursday.
Boy, you talk about a pain in the neck.
Yep. The show must go on, but I don't know what kind of show it's going to be. I don't think they'll cancel, Steve. You know what? Honestly, they got superstars matches and main event matches that they've aired the last couple of weeks with talent. They can go to them and then do backstage interviews with Renee Young and Tom Phillips that are new and fresh. Do some video packages on Rumble. Have Cole, and Booker, in the empty. They could even film in the empty arena. They're stuck there anyway. And just do wraparounds. In a way, it's kind of the novelty's kind of exciting. I've lived through a lot of snowstorms here in Minnesota. It shakes things up, but it can be kind of exciting and different. It's not ideal by any means, but I think they could still get a fresh show out with some matches and Rumble highlights and fresh interviews. But that they're working on a B plan right now as we talk.
What do you think that would have happened if they would have put Roman Reigns as the number 2 guy and made him work all the way through that thing?
It would have been better if Roman Reigns could do it. But if he took a nap for 20 minutes twice, then they're still in trouble. So
I hate to keep going down that road, but that's what happened. He goes into a corner and takes a nap.
Yep. I mean, I kept looking for him because I knew he was still in the match.
I did too.
He was sitting, leaning on the bottom rope. I thought someone brought him a drink. Just chilling out, watching things go on. That's not if you're trying to get over. That's where the double turn is interesting. If they drop some hints that Roman's getting an attitude, he's feeling entitled, shoots fans little looks that say, "Hey, I'm too cool for you. I'm more cool than you. How dare you boo me?" If he starts acting irritated, to me, you almost have to go with that flow because the headwind of him being a lead babyface at Mania is so strong. I don't think Vince McMahon wants Wall Street and the mainstream media. Time Magazine's got an article up on the rejection by the fans last night. I don't think Vince wants to put himself in a position to look like he's that out of step with the fans. That's dangerous to do. I think you need to own what's happening and find a way to just judo your way into making it seem like you meant this all along.
Here's a question for Stephen Wade, and I'll let you answer this, Wade, and then I'll chip in a little bit. As you can probably tell, there's many in the wrestling community that are not happy with the outcome of the Royal Rumble, especially with the early elimination of Daniel Bryan. So my question to you both is, does an elimination like that for a guy like Daniel Bryan, who is clearly the most undisputed popular superstar in the current roster, show a true lack of confidence in his character from a creative standpoint, or do you both believe that this is simply the beginning of a feud that will build to a WrestleMania match? As from Nick over in New Orleans.
Well, see, I'll throw in that question. What if they add up, and I know we don't like three-ways, but what if they added Bryan to the match, and you got Reigns a tweener, Lesnar a tweener, Bryan a babyface, and you just give fans what they want to make it a three-way? I'm not voting for it, but that's been thrown out there. I think it is a lack of confidence in Bryan as a lead babyface because they're not believing what their ears are telling them. They're not believing what they see in the crowd. And it's been going on since a fall of 2013 when they turned it into a storyline. You can't be the face of the company. You're too short. Look at you. You're a troll. And they told the fans that, but it was the heels saying it, not the baby faces. And it made the fans get behind Bryan even more. They have an awesome story to tell. Steve, before you got over as a top act, WWE was wholesome family entertainment. That was a phrase they used. And then sometimes you got to go with something that's different than you expect when the fans tell you. And Vince McMahon on your show and on WWE Network said that he listens to the fans, and they pick the guys, and he made that the excuse not to push Cesaro, which is bizarre because the fans actually have liked Cesaro. But he says, I listen to the fans, and you've got to catch on with them. You got to grab the brass ring. Daniel Bryan grabbed the brass ring 18 months ago, 24 months ago. It is by definition a lack of confidence in Bryan, and so I don't know what. I don't know what more to say other than, they don't do that. Steve, do you want me to break news here, even though it's going to be a day late? Because I just got the email on Raw. Raw is postponed until Thursday. So tickets for tonight's show will be honored for a SmackDown event this Thursday that'll air live on Sci-Fi. And the Boston Garden fans with tickets will have the option for the actual SmackDown taping of exchange them for an event on Saturday, June 27th, or get a refund. So the TD Gardens event canceled, probably due to scheduling with the Bruins and Celtics. Raw is going to be on Sci-Fi instead, live on Thursday.
So then what do you do with the WWE superstars? Leave them on the road? They were in Philly last night. They've got to get to Boston. Some of them, one or two, may ride the jet. So they're going to be down for, 2 days?
Yeah.
3 days.
3 days, yeah.
3 days down on the road.
Yep.
Boy, if there's one thing I can't stand is being down on the road with nothing to do but twiddle your thumbs.
Hopefully what's happened, Steve, because the snowstorm isn't bad yet as we're recording this, hopefully they're getting out of town now. And so they get to go home, and then the idea is, fly back in Thursday morning when the runways are plowed.
So you think they'll fly everybody home?
That's what I think everybody's on their way home now. That would be my guess. People will know by the time they hear this, but that'd be my guess. They're giving people a chance to go home and spend Tuesday and Wednesday at home and fly out Thursday.
Here's another one. Roman Reigns is a hard-working WWE talent, deserving the main event talents, titles, and exposure. Was it fair to him knowing that there was a chance he was going to get booed like that? I'm not arguing the choice of Reigns. We know Philadelphia is a vocal crowd. Roman Reigns got booed when he won the Rumble. It was heartbreaking to see. He deserves confetti and the loud cheering crowd. Instead, the greatest moment of that kid's life was overshadowed with Philadelphians who aren't ready to accept Reigns as their champion. They were calling for the anti-American Rusev. Myself and a lot of fans I've talked to feel like it wasn't good for Reigns. They might have caused long-term damage to a great character. The fans will take out their frustrations on Reigns from this point on. I just feel like it's not fair to Roman, and that's from Tawfiq Ali.
It is unfair to Roman, and I think it is worth saying. It sounds like we might be dogging on Roman a little bit when we say, he needs more moves.
And we're not. We're just telling it like it is, but go ahead.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's fair to say that, to stress again, and we said this last Thursday on my show before Rumble happened, Reigns is going to be a top guy in 3 to 4 years on the path he's on, maybe 1 year from now. I'm just saying, it's 99%. He's going to be a top-tier, top 3, 4 guy, maybe number 1 top guy in 3, 4, 5 years. Maybe by next year he's even ahead of the pace. He's not there yet. That's a compliment, not a criticism. It's the booking, as this emailer points out, that puts Roman in an unfair position to be judged. It's like judging a rookie first-round draft pick compared to a 6-year veteran who was also a top 2, 3 draft pick in the NFL, NBA, NHL. It's not fair for Roman. They put him in this position. It's not fair. And Roman. Did you watch long enough after the Rumble ended to see the Rock Reigns interview on the network?
Yes, I did.
But Rock was kind of off his game and irritated, but Reigns looked like, Reigns looked like it was an emotionally draining experience for him, and it seemed a little shell-shocked by what he went through. And maybe I'm misreading it. It was just a grueling night for him or something. But he looked.
I don't think you're misreading it. It wasn't a grueling night for him. The response was grueling, and then to have to do that interview, the kid, I don't think he's the greatest crowd reader in the world, but he read and heard and felt that crowd, and it wasn't a positive response. I could totally understand if the kid was dejected and despondent after what he just went through, absolutely. Because, when you win something, you want the crowd to go absolutely, ballistic for you because they're happy for you. And all of a sudden, it's thumbs down and boos. I don't care who you are, and you've got to. He still continued to point at the WrestleMania sign like he was supposed to. That's where he's going. But to get booed when this is really one of the highlights of your wrestling career, and people just crapped all over it.
I felt bad for him genuinely because there's nothing that Roman Reigns has done where anybody should be rooting for him to fail. No. There's nothing that he has done that should make fans resent him as a person. What's happening is he showed signs. Sean Waltman was on PW Torch Livecast a couple years ago saying Roman Reigns is a guy that I told Hunter is a guy they should look at to build around. So I'm blaming Sean Waltman. But and Hunter a year ago was debating Vince McMahon. Hunter saying I like Roman. Vince was saying I like Big E. Clearly, Roman's way ahead of him. But not that Vince wasn't for Roman, but Vince was, his pet project was Big E at that moment. Hunter and Vince were right to see Reigns as a future champion. They were wrong to put him in a position where fans felt that he was the corporate guy being shoved at them ahead of his earning it in the eyes of the fans. And again, Steve, I want to stress what I said at the beginning. WWE conditioned their audience for this. This is not, quote, the internet's fault.
Right.
This is the mass mainstream audience who has been told on Raw by John Cena, I hope we entertained you tonight. Did we entertain you?
Right.
They always use that word. They let the fans vote for matches and stipulations. At some point, they've got to, and they're starting to now, take ownership back and tell the fans, you're here to watch athletes compete for a world title, and you can cheer for who you want, boo for who you want, but they're fighting. We're not here to entertain you. We're here to find out who the best wrestler is, and it's a privilege for you to watch it. Don't tell us what we should be doing. It's up to the wrestlers to win the match and win titles. You're just there to watch. I'm not saying be blunt like that, but
but don't ask the crowd for that response.
Right? Yeah.
You don't need to put out a survey.
Yes, exactly.
You dictate.
Yeah.
And if you're truly listening to the crowd, then you would know that. Let me leave 4 quick questions from Michael. Wade, who would you have picked as the Rumble winner?
Daniel Bryan. He'd have been my guy. I think there's so much enthusiasm for Bryan right now. The way that he went out last year, winning the title, ending WrestleMania, and then he goes on his honeymoon, comes home, his dad dies, and then he has this neck injury. You can play it up with Kane, and build the storyline around it. Daniel Bryan winning at Mania and successfully defending it, at least until SummerSlam, is the story that fans were cheated out of last year, and they want it this year. Yep. WWE would have had more subscriptions to the network and more ratings and more merchandise sales had they done that and groomed Roman Reigns at a better pace and, quote, limited his minutes.
I agree. I agree with you on that one. Is
Great.
Roman Reigns' career over before it even started? I know you're going to say no to that because in 3 to 4 years we're expecting him to be a gigantic superstar in WWE, correct?
Yes, it sets him back a little bit.
It definitely a setback, and it's an eye-opener, and it goes to you got to learn how to work and put some cooler, more in-depth move sets in and actually learn how to work and put the time in. So I want to preach about that. I've already preached about it enough.
Yep.
One more out of the question of 4. Do you think Vince is officially, quote unquote, out of touch with the current generation?
I think we've been saying that when people say, Vince is almost 70, he's out of touch. I said this on Twitter last night. Don't bring up Vince's age. Hold him accountable for the job he does regardless of his age. I don't think it's
Correct.
fair if he's 20, 50, or 70. I don't think that's fair unless he's diagnosed with some age-related illness, where it is slowing, he's not able to have the energy or the mental capacity. That's not what we know. We've been second-guessing Vince. We meaning, I shouldn't say we. Everybody has been second-guessing Vince since the mid-'80s. They second-guessed him about so many things, making Harley Race the king and not acknowledging he was NWA champion. If he was 70 then, people would have said, look, Vince is losing it. So I think it's actually more. It's better for your argument to not blame age and to call the product. So
okay.
So that said, I don't think Vince has lost it.
Okay, he's not lost it, but let's take age out of the equation.
Yeah.
Is he dictating his vision of the product? Because it doesn't seem like he's listening to the crowd at all.
When I say I don't think Vince has lost it, I think Vince has a formula that worked for him for a very, very long time. And if you're going to bring up age at all, as opposed to age, let's just say that there's a stubbornness to not change right now that some people exhibit in their 20s or 50s. He's doing it in his 60s. And that is maybe thinking I've been so successful, I don't know that I have the energy or trying to think what the term would be, the stomach to deal with a massive overhaul of the philosophy that brought me to the dance. And I think Vince looks at Roman Reigns and he wants to crown a new franchise guy, and he doesn't want to wait, and he's being stubborn. And he's being stubborn in a way that he's been stubborn before and given in, like the Bret Hart-Lex Luger situation 21 years ago. He's given in before, but maybe he isn't surrounded by those voices who are disagreeing with him strong enough at this point.
Okay, you just said franchise guy. Can Daniel Bryan be a franchise guy?
He's a guy, he's 34, I think. Just took most of the last, 9 months off because of a neck injury. Got a lot of mileage, a lot of bumps on his bump card. I don't know, but this would be my response to that. If Daniel Bryan is the guy who can make you the most money for the next 6 months, and somebody else is going to make you less money in the next 6 months, and waiting to push them won't hurt their long-term prospects and might actually help them make the most money you can in the next 6 to 9 months. Go with Daniel Bryan. This quest to constantly be only centering your promotion around a franchise guy, I think, is a mistake. Every once in a while, you want an interlude, and an interlude can be Daniel Bryan. Maybe it's 9 months. Maybe he takes off. The numbers are great, and you go with him 18 months or 36 months. He's not going to be doing this in 10 years. He's going to be in his mid-40s. His body can't handle it. Try it for 9 months, and then have A and B plan in terms of maybe you have him headline WrestleMania 32 also, maybe not. Let the numbers and the fans dictate what happens, but go with him. He's the obvious guy to go with for 9 months from now to SummerSlam.
You're listening to another classic episode of The Steve Austin Show, only on PodcastOne.
Hey, y'all. Taking a moment to share a new podcast, True Underdog, recently launched by 4 times Entrepreneur of the Year award winner Jason Waller. It's real, it's raw, it's motivational. If you're looking for inspiring stories and killer entrepreneurship advice, you got to head over and subscribe to True Underdog Podcast. Jason Waller is the definition of a true underdog. He was raised in a trailer park, suffered childhood abuse, was kicked out of high school, and became a dad in his teens. After struggling to care for his young family and hearing the words no and you can't too many times, Jason found the power within and used his street smarts to start 3 companies from the ground up. With his latest venture, Power Home Solar, on the path to becoming a billion-dollar enterprise. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling motivated already. And trust me when I tell you, this guy's energy is contagious. Head over to True Underdog Podcast to hear how Jason and his high-profile guests turn their lives around to achieve massive success. Subscribe to True Underdog Podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or your favorite podcast app. So what's next for you, Wade? When are you doing your next live cast?
I'll be on actually Tuesday live at 5:30 Eastern. 2:30 Pacific time. We take calls for 90 minutes every Tuesday. Actually, we're on every single day of the week. We have different hosts. And so people can go to pwtorchlivecast.com. They can stream it live, but it's on demand right afterwards. So if you don't catch it live, you can listen back to it. You can email me at pwtorchlivecast@gmail.com, just like you read some email questions here. We do the same thing. Jason Powell from ProWrestling.net is my co-host every Tuesday. It's our most popular show during the week, except when you're on, Steve. And we welcome any of your listeners to join us live for a live call-in format 5 days a week.
All right, so, Wade, we know we have WrestleMania 31 coming up in Santa Clara, California. It looks like the main event at this point is going to be Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns. Looking past that, going to Dallas, Texas, WrestleMania 32. How is the WWE going to get 105,000 people in that building?
Good question. They're going to need some special attractions. I think that they are probably already thinking about that now. I mean, I don't think they're going to start thinking about it this August. I think WrestleMania 31 will be booked with WrestleMania 32 in mind. And so what happens with Lesnar and Roman Reigns, what happens with Triple H versus Sting, presumably, what happens with John Cena against Rusev, that's going to play into it. And then the question is that an Undertaker return? Is that an Undertaker retirement ceremony? One or the other I think they're going to do in Dallas. And then The Rock, with coming back tonight or at the Rumble. Do they do something with Rock and Reigns, including perhaps Rock versus Reigns? Maybe they develop their relationship and something happens where Rock's headlining against Reigns. I don't know.
I really don't see that happening. Now could they tag together? I think they could.
Go. Yep. But do you want Reigns as the franchise guy in a tag match at Mania? They tend to shy away from that. That's more of a SummerSlam Survivor Series format.
Hey, man, if they was willing to fly the Rock in to rub him this time, it all depends on where he's at that time, I would say.
Yeah.
But also, Undertaker, have you heard anything about him? I haven't heard anything from him, about him, anything since WrestleMania 30 in New Orleans. Is he okay? Is he healthy? Is he up and at 'em? Is he training?
Somebody put a picture on Twitter of him at the airport. He knew the picture was being taken. He posed for it. He don't look like a wrestler. I've just put it bluntly. He looked like an old guy at the airport who just woke up and hadn't had his coffee yet. We all look like that sometimes. It wasn't a flattering shot.
I've been in a million airports where I look,
yes.
out of it,
We're not dressing up in suits like the 60s.
Yeah. He was just hanging out. I wouldn't put that picture as a judgment of how he's feeling.
No.
But I hadn't heard of him.
That's the only public appearance we've seen, So
right.
no, but I like it that way. I like that we're not hearing a lot from Undertaker. I don't want to see Taker on Twitter talking about going to a restaurant and meeting. Be mysterious. If it happens, it happens. If he needs 2 years off, that's good. I don't see a lot of indications that there's a chance he comes back this year right now, because I don't know who that opponent would be either, unless they do. I mean, there were some rumors that I think had very little credibility, but I could be wrong, about Bray Wyatt against Undertaker. They gave Bray Wyatt some rub at the Rumble, gave him time in the ring, extensive time.
Yeah, he was in over 40 minutes.
Yeah, so maybe, but is Bray Wyatt at this point? I think he's cooled off from a year or so ago.
He's definitely cooled off.
So is he worth an Undertaker match? I don't think Undertaker should come back for Bray Wyatt. I think if Undertaker's going to come back, it needs to be for something bigger than that, and I just don't know what that is, because John Cena's doing Rusev.
Oh, is that going to be the course?
Well, they did an angle last night for it, so unless somehow they do it at Fastlane, I mean, I've been talking about it for 6 months that Rusev Cena's kind of been what Vince penciled in.
Now, as you know, and I think everybody knows, I have tremendous respect for John Cena, as do you, and following his whole career. The kid's 35, 36, I'm guessing?
Yeah, I think 30, yeah. Okay.
How many years do you think he has left in the tank? You and me sitting here talking.
He is a freak of nature in a good way. He's actually, he's turning 38 in April.
Okay.
So that's different than being 35. I mean, it's just, but I've heard the wear and tear is showing up, but it's showing up like on a normal human being, where he was never normal before.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're like, oh, he's breaking down, he can't do it anymore. But look at Kobe Bryant. You hit a point, and all of a sudden a guy who wasn't injured gets injured 3 times in the course of a year or so. Serious injuries. That's, I think, what WWE needs to be cautious of. Not that John Cena is going to want to quit or won't be able to go, but if he keeps doing the things that he's doing, there's a better chance of injury. And so I think they should be efficient with him and make sure that they're not leaning on him as much as they were 4 years ago.
Yeah, they've got to not lean on him so hard. Sometimes when I look back at myself, now, of course, John Cena's a gym fanatic and a fitness fanatic. And, I was a little bit more on the drinking side. But when I look back, had I paced myself a little bit better, and had I been, booked a little bit more conservatively towards the back end when it looked like I was kind of being frazzled. Maybe it could have got an extra year or two out of me. But certainly, man, with that being in sight as far as the picture of how long can he stay around, I would be very conservative with how I book him. Now, obviously, still the face of the franchise with everything moving forward, but just a dial back. And then when you look at John Cena, he's a guy that, on these big shows takes some pretty spectacular bumps sometimes, bumps that he doesn't need to take. Sometimes he'll even do that in a house show. So sometimes, he could be, because of his hunger to please that crowd and his passion for the business, tends to put himself in harm's way too many times. And through what I feel now, 13, 14 years removed, sometimes I still feel the repercussions of some of the decisions I made. So he should be a little bit leery of that. As you start out your wrestling career, Wade, you have that gas tank, and that fuel gauge is on full. And I don't care who you are, it always starts to move towards the E, and that stands for empty. And finally the gas is going to run out. Can you make the comebacks every here and there? Yes. But as a full-time guy, you start to get on reserves.
And that's why they look to Roman Reigns, and maybe desperately so, maybe a little too eager to make sure that he's there in case Cena goes down or they have to limit him. But Daniel, the thing is, we talk about WrestleMania 32, what'll draw. Well, maybe going strong with Daniel Bryan, and it's too late. It's 48 hours too late now. But had they gone with Daniel Bryan strong and he won the championship, he beat Lesnar. Lesnar goes away. 32, maybe you can get Lesnar to come back, and you can do a Bryan Lesnar rematch, but still do the star attraction matches with Sting and Taker and Rock with Reigns or something like that. I think it's wide open what WrestleMania 32 is. I think there's enough out there that can draw. I talked to you last Thursday about the chances of you getting in the ring for 32 in our 2-hour conversation on my show. You would be a huge difference maker if you did, but I don't think that's necessary to put 105 in there. But they need a hot product, and they need to learn from tonight. This week, I should say. This week, Steve, could be a big lesson that is valuable for WWE because they're going to have to change the way that they need to be more open to what the fans are doing if it goes against their own instincts in order to fill 100,000 plus in that building. I don't think they can do it if they're stubborn and force-feeding storylines and talent to the fans. So maybe really Sunday night is a blessing in disguise.
Okay, so then let's pretend that you're Vince McMahon right now. You just had your guy that you got designs on being your future world champion or face of the franchise, and Roman Reigns, and he goes out and Philly boos him out of the town. And maybe any arena would have, or even half of that. So what do you tell Roman Reigns if you're Vince McMahon?
I think you go to him and you apologize. And you let him know it's not your fault that we put you in this position, but it is a time that we need to sit down and have work out a game plan to change course. What we're doing is not working, and your promos aren't working. You're not showing enough in the ring. We need to figure out how to change that. You need to earn the fans' respect. This was reality check for us. This is on us collectively. I should have had the experience to know better than to put you out there, and that's clear right now. But let's figure out a game plan. We got to change course. We're going to stick with you. And that's the thing. I mean, I'd heard Roman Reigns in casual situations, out and about with his friends, was absolutely supremely confident. Nothing could go wrong. He was going to be the top guy. And that scared me a little bit. I like the bravado. I like self-confidence. But you can't do it at the expense of you. And you, Steve, you speak to this. You got to be scared to be successful. You got to be nervous about your spot, nervous about your job.
You can't take it as a given.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
As soon as you think you're entitled or you're taking it as a given, no, bad things are going to happen because, it's almost it's conveyed in your presentation. And it's almost like, if I go back to a football game, it's like when Alabama took on Ohio State. Ohio State was number 4, Alabama number 1. And I think Alabama assumed they were supposed to win that game, and they got the hell beat out of them because Ohio State went and punched them in the mouth. So you can't ever assume that anything's just going to happen because then you get a hell of a wake-up call. Okay, let's shift gears one more time here. You're sitting in your office, you're Vince McMahon, and you get that knock on the door. It's Daniel Bryan. And Daniel Bryan walks in and says, hey, what's happening? Where are we at? What are we going to do? What do I have to do to get to the Holy Grail?
Daniel Bryan might want to hire Tanya Harding to take out Roman Reigns so he can get the match. I mean, I don't know if a meeting with Vince is going to do any good at this point, but maybe set up a happy accident with Roman Reigns. Maybe puts a banana peel on the steps and hope Roman goes down hurt, because then Daniel Bryan's owed a title shot anyway. He got stripped of the belt. If this is UFC, Steve, Brock Lesnar is the interim champion, and Daniel Bryan is the champion who was out injured. Daniel Bryan should be getting a title shot if this were truly fair. So that's why I say, I mean, there's still a chance to switch the belt from Lesnar to Bryan between now and Mania, have it be Bryan against a heel Reigns, and do something completely different with Lesnar, like an Undertaker rematch. I mean, I'm not ruling out major twists in the road based on how seriously Vince McMahon and Triple H and Stephanie and Kevin Dunn and everybody take that reaction on Saturday and the hashtag and the publicity they're getting from it. If they take it real seriously, this could, I mean, Steve, there's times where Vince has a meeting where he goes, assume nothing, all plans are off, let's start fresh, I want to hear all ideas. Now, usually it just goes back to what he planned originally, but He has those meetings sometimes, so...
Okay, well, so Daniel Bryan, does he show up with hearing aids for everybody and say, hey, put these in and listen to the people? Because clearly, the people are behind me.
At some point, though, I mean, would you give advice to somebody to go to their... it depends on the circumstances. I mean, there's people who at their jobs who are frustrated that they think they deserve a promotion instead of somebody else, and they don't get it. And you can go to your boss and you make your case. And, I've read the books in college. You go in, you write the stuff down. You go, here's why I think I deserve a raise or a promotion. Bryan gets that in the form of crowd reaction every night. He doesn't need to write it down and tell Vince. So if Vince and Hunter aren't doing it yet, I think there's a stubbornness and they're not going to. And it was Sunday night was the time to change course. I don't know that you can, but I don't know that it's realistic that they're going to change course. Now, I think Daniel Bryan's going to be in against WrestleMania against a heel Sheamus or something. I don't think he's going to be in a top spot at Mania. And I think Roman Reigns it's going to be dangerous if they want Roman Reigns to get a babyface pop at WrestleMania 31, winning in San Francisco. I think it could be a replay of Philadelphia.
Okay, then that WrestleMania is what, 2 months away, 3?
2 months, yeah.
2 months away.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is the main event. Do you add an element to it? Do you make it a triple threat? Do you leave it as is and just let the whole thing unfold?
I think of all the bad scenarios that are options, because no good ones truly exist, that are realistic. Now, Roman Reigns could get an injury, and then they do Bryan Lesnar, and everything's happy again, just like with what they did. But going to a three-way like they did last year, maybe they should, but I like the double turn situation. I like Heyman at ringside for Lesnar. Reigns goes in, shows hints of being a heel. Lesnar, Steve, I mean, the way they booked Lesnar on Raw last week and on the Rumble, that's booking a babyface turn, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, seemingly.
I mean,
yes.
That's what you would do. Paint one.
And again, as we talked, if it's Brock and Seth, Brock is going to be the babyface out of that pairing.
Right. So that's the thing. Is it a one-off? Did they do that because of the Rumble, or did they do it to plant the seed for something that we're going to need to watch for 2 months? And so I have less faith than I did 72 hours ago that in Vince we trust. Let's have faith. There's a plan. It'll make sense in retrospect. I think Vince, if he had a plan, imagine how frustrated Stevie is right now. He had a plan to make this all make sense, and nobody's thought of it. He's going to do something on Raw, and people are going to go, holy crap, I'm never complaining again. Vince is a genius, and now he's got to wait to Thursday to do it.
Right.
So, but if he didn't have that plan, he's got 3 extra days to think about it and come up with one, and it might be a good thing.
Before we wrap this thing up, Wade, one more time, go ahead and give the info to be able to listen to the live cast and your Twitter feed.
Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, you can follow me at the Wade Keller or at PW Torch. That's me and the brand. I tweet more at the Wade Keller. PWTorch.com is the website. PWTorchLivecast.com is the only live Monday through Friday call-in talk show covering wrestling. We got interviews, big-name interviews. We had Lanny Poffo 2 weeks ago, Steve, talking about Randy Savage.
That was phenomenal.
Did you listen to it?
No, I've been meaning to because I heard it was so phenomenal.
Okay, very good. Yeah, it really was. The reaction I got to Lanny talking about Randy as a person, as a brother, and the timeline and the circumstances of Randy finally getting inducted. I have had no more response to any interview on Twitter ever than that one. So I encourage people to check that out. We have a VIP membership. I plugged it last time, pwtorch.com/govip. People can become a member, hear me every day talk about wrestling. I've done it for 1,500 straight days and counting. No days off. We have tons of other audio. We have 25 years ago audio shows that we put up from Pro Wrestling Spotlight from New York. That we put those up 2, 3, 4 times a month. Fascinating stuff. 10 years ago archives, that roundtable I talked about. We're speculating will Cena be a franchise guy. We talked about that too. So a lot of cool stuff when you go VIP, and people can check it out for $10 a month.
All right, Wade Keller, the Wade Keller on Twitter. Wade, I appreciate it. It's always great to talk to you about the business of pro wrestling, or as they call it now, sports entertainment.
It's pro wrestling.
Pro wrestling. You heard it from Wade Keller. Thanks, Wade.
Thanks, Steve.
This has been a Podcast One production. Download new episodes of The Steve Austin Show every Tuesday at PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.
From the team that brought you the big podcast with Shaq, it's the Big Shot Bob Pod with the biggest shooter in NBA history, Robert Horry.
To Horry for three. Oh, unbelievable. This guy is off the charts.
The Big Shot Bob Pod. Yeah, of course we're talking about hoops. Charles Oakley.
We played him in the finals when it was the Rockets, and I dunked on Oak, and I kind of flexed on like, and Oak didn't do anything. I went down the court like this. I just missed a punch to the jaw in, boy.
Subscribe now and get new episodes of the Big Shot Bob Pod every week on the Podcast One app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, LiveByLive.com, and everywhere you get your favorite podcasts.